And now, Lifestyles Unlimited presents the Real Estate Investor Radio Show.
Welcome to the show. My name is Al Gordon, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom. And on today's show, there is no guest. I know I use the word we're. It's really just me and the stuff going on between my ears. Yeah. And you know what? You know what popped into my brain over the weekend that I felt I needed to talk to you about? The man who lives in his mom's basement. Yeah, we're going to talk about the man who lives in his mom's basement. And you're sitting back there going, really, Al? Is that all you could come up with? What the heck does a man living in his mom's basement have to do with real estate investing? Well, it has everything to do with real estate investing. What we need to do is we need to shine the light on that man living in his mom's basement. And here's why. We need to understand the why. You heard me correctly. We have to understand the why. Why does a man live in his mom's basement? Well, I think there are three types of men that live in their mom's basement. And I think it's going on today in our society right now. The first type is the man who has to live in his mom's basement. You heard me correctly. The one that has to live in his mom's basement. This is the man who went out into the world and just wrecked his life. He totally wrecked his life. He went out and did all the things that everybody told him that's not a good idea, but he went and did them anyway because they seemed like a lot of fun. It seemed exciting. It seemed like a great idea to take those credit cards and throw them down on the bar and buy everybody in the bar a drink because, oh man, that is so exciting. But the problem is that type of man, he's got issues. He has control issues. He has problems with money. He has credit card debt because he slams that card down on the bar, buys everybody a drink, yet he doesn't have income. He doesn't have the income to pay for that credit card bill. That's why that guy is living in his mom's basement. That guy is not a guy you want to do business with. Guaranteed. You do not want to do business with that type of man who's living in his mom's basement because that man has problems. That man is more concerned with his own self than he is with anything else. He is so self-centered, so self-focused. It's all about him. You don't want to do business with that guy. Why am I picking on that guy living in mom's basement? Because I understand that you need to understand that that guy is a problem for you. Now, that guy could show up one day. Mom could say, hey, honey, you lived in my basement too long. You're self-serving. You need to move out. And self-serving guy has to go look for a place to live. He does. He has to go look for a place to live. Now, that guy might come to one of my properties, and he might see me going, he might go, wow, this thing is nice. This is pretty. I want to live here. And I go, okay, that's fine. You can live here. And I say, we have an application process. There's a fee for me to run your application. And when I run your application, I'm going to do a credit check. I'm going to do a background check. I'm just going to do a whole person look at you to see if you're the right guy for me to go into business with. And that guy that would live in mom's basement, that got thrown out of mom's basement, who wants to live in my house, he's got a counteroffer. He does, because he knows he's got credit problems. He doesn't want me running that credit report. No, that would wreck this whole deal for him. He's got to find a way for me to accept him as a resident in one of my properties. He does. So you know what he does? He digs into his pocket and he pulls out his wallet. And in that wallet, there are some shiny bills in there. Yeah, there's like 6 months worth of rent in there. And he pulls 6 months worth of rent out and he waves it in my face and he says, hey, I'll pay 6 months, all cash, right up front, if you just let me live in your property. See what a great guy I am? And you know what? That behavior right there tells me that this is not the guy I want to rent my properties to. This is what our founder and CEO has deemed a Purple Martian. Yes, I have just introduced you to the concept of the Purple Martian. The Purple Martian is a person that exists in our society right now. They are out there. Now, fortunately, they're a small minority, but they exist. And these are the people that if you let them get into your properties, well, they're going to do terrible things because they're self-absorbed. Remember, it is all about them. It is all about their experience. It has nothing to do with you. As a matter of fact, if you try to impose on them, well, they're going to become more of a problem for you. We do not rent our properties to Purple Martians. I'm talking about men who live in their mother's basements. And you're thinking, Al, you've totally lost your mind. What does this have to do with real estate? We talked about the man who lives in his basement because he has effectively wrecked his life. There are men that live in their mom's basement because they are out of control. They've completely lost any sense of sanity as far as living in this country. They go out and do impulsive things that get them into all kinds of trouble. Financial trouble, legal trouble, all kinds of trouble, relationship trouble. You know exactly what I'm talking. You know what kind of people I'm talking about, right? And the point I made was we call those people at Lifestyles Unlimited Purple Martians, and we won't do business with them. We will not do business with them. We will not rent our properties to these people. And the way we are able to identify a Purple Martian is because we screen our residents before we enter into a business relationship with them. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's kind of interesting, Al. You screen your residents. Do your residents screen you? Well, they don't run a criminal background check on me, and they don't ask me for a credit report. I think the way they screen me is they go to my property, they walk through my property, they see that my property is clean, it's functional, it's a great place to live. As a matter of fact, it's better than all the other stuff that they have looked at, and the price point is a price point that they can afford. That's how they screen me. They make a determination based on my product sitting out there that maybe I've got my act together, and they want to do business with me. Okay, we clear? All right, when we went to break, I started talking about the second type of man that lives in his mother's basement. And this type of man is the opposite of that first type of man. He really is. He's the opposite. This is the man that was affected by external forces that he had no control over, i.e., let's call it the pandemic. Yeah, 2020, right? March of 2020. Trump's still president, right? He comes on the TV. Everybody saw it. But basically what he said was, we're asking everybody to just stay at home. You remember that? Everybody stay at home. We're looking for 2 weeks. And everybody was like, wow, 2 weeks. Staycation for 2 weeks. Okay, I can do this. And remember what Trump said? He said, we're doing this because we're trying to flatten the curve. What the CDC had advised him was that the coronavirus, the original one, the super deadly one that was killing all these people in America, right? Remember that one? They felt that if we could just lock down the country, lock everybody down, everybody just go nowhere for 2 weeks, unless they were considered essential, they don't go anywhere. Who is essential? Construction, medical, supermarkets. Okay, the people that provide you the basic things that you need to live, the people that worked on those things, well, they were considered essential. Yeah, they were considered essential. As a matter of fact, I would argue that the internet, whoever provides the internet services, that was absolutely essential because that's how we stayed connected for 2 years, right? Oh yeah, let me get back to Trump. So that 2 week thing, that never happened, did it? 2 weeks turned into 2 years. Yeah, 2 weeks turned into 2 years. And there are people in the government today that still would like us to go back into lockdown, put masks back on our face. I am not mask shaming, by the way. If you feel that a mask is beneficial to you, go for it. I will not shame you. I will not say anything bad about you. You do you. but I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not. I've gotten the injections. I believe it or not, I think I've been kind of immune to the coronavirus because there are some medications that I take that I think actually kind of help me resist the coronavirus because ironically, I actually had been around people that were infected and I never got infected. I never got infected. And every time I had to take a test, it was always because I was going to do something, like I was going to go into the hospital to have heart surgery. So they had to give me a test and it was negative. Okay, I wanted to go on a cruise. I had to take a test to get on the cruise. I was fine with that. Okay, let's get back to the man who's living in his mom's basement, version 2.0. This particular guy works in the service industry. This guy's a hard worker. He had been doing everything that he was told to do by society to get ahead in life. But unfortunately, life threw him the coronavirus. And because of that, because he worked in the service industry, he was unemployed. Now, he went to the government and said, "Can you help me out?" And what did the government do? Well, they started sending him unemployment checks and stimulus checks and things like that, right? But here's the problem. That income coming from the federal government was not enough to meet his requirements for living. And as a result of that, he had to move. He couldn't afford his apartment anymore. He really couldn't. He worked with the people that he rented from. He sought to get rent relief. Okay. Now, trust me, a lot of municipalities out there were offering rent relief programs. So it was all dialed back into the federal government. So there was all these strings and nobody knew how it was supposed to work. And it was kind of a terrible affair. Now, I will tell you that Lifestyles Unlimited members cracked that code. They cracked that code, and they figured out which of their residents were materially affected, and they went to work, full court press, helping them to break through the red tape so that they wouldn't have to leave their apartment. But this particular guy, well, he was renting an apartment from a non-Lifestyles Unlimited member who didn't go the extra mile to try and help their residents. So when this man's lease came up, he had to leave. He couldn't afford to stay there. And this guy has principles. He didn't want to stay in somebody's apartment if he couldn't afford to pay for it. That's not how this guy rolls. So what does this guy do? Well, he moves in with mom. He moves into the basement. He lives with mom for 2 years, trying to find employment. He picks up a casual job here. It doesn't last. He picks up another casual job there. It doesn't last. Okay, we finally get to a place, let's call it today, where we're finally coming out of this thing that we call the pandemic. This guy is going to go into the market. He's going to look for a place to live. He finally found a job. Would you rent to him? I'll answer that question when we come back after this.
Got questions? Call Lifestyles Unlimited at 855-497-4335. The Real Estate Investor Radio Show continues next.
There is a dream killer here somewhere today. You're going to run into somebody that's going to tell you this stuff doesn't work. Like Vinette said, it's a scam. This is probably a multi-level marketing program. Somebody is going to tell you it doesn't work because you're the wrong race, the wrong age, the wrong sex, the wrong sexual preference, the something or other. That this is all set up so rich people can be successful and all you poor people can't. And if you believe that, they've won. But if you don't, you win.
Don't believe the dream killers. Start winning today with the Lifestyles Unlimited free workshop. Get the knowledge you need to replace your income in 2 to 5 years, and then find out how to take action. Register for the free online workshop at lifestylesunlimitedworkshop.com.
Welcome back to the show. Hey, if you're just joining me, you've missed a lot. You've really missed a lot. And what you need to do is go to lifestylesunlimited.com. When you get there, there's a ton of resources for you. But where I'm specifically pointing you is to something we call the radio tab. Yeah, there's a big thing there. It says radio. Click on it. Click on it. And I'll tell you what, you're going to get exposed to all kinds of information that's going to help you understand that there is a better path for you in this life than the one you're currently following. Guaranteed. Now, here's the other thing I want you to do. Whatever you do for a podcast service, there's two shows I want you to look for. First of all, I want you to look for this one, the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. You get Andy, Mike, and Al. That's who you get. We're the guys that put together all the content that you hear. We come from different perspectives. And what's beautiful about Andy, Mike, and Al is that we're not Del Walmsley. No, we're not Del Walmsley. We did not retire ourselves at the age of 32. We retired ourselves at a much later stage of life. So as a result of that, we have insight to like corporate America or the military industrial complex or, all these other places that Del never spent a lot of time in after he was 32 years of age. So the other thing that we have a perspective on, and Andy and Mike clearly have this perspective, they understand the fallacy of shoving money into retirement accounts. Now, I actually did that once earlier in life, but 2008, kind of wrecked me. So I stopped doing all that stuff. I stopped doing it in 2008. And then I found Lifestyles Unlimited in 2017. And Lifestyles Unlimited helped me stop wrecking my real estate investing business. Oh, yeah, I used to invest in real estate before Lifestyles Unlimited, and I did it all wrong. Wrong. I had no idea. I really had no idea because I was taking advice from other people that were so-called real estate investors, but they didn't really have a solid, grounded plan. They didn't. But I went with what I had, and it got me mediocrity. That's exactly the experience I had. 2017, I joined Lifestyles Unlimited. I sit through the 16-hour course, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what have I done? But the good news is there was a path for me to follow to fix the mistakes that I had made. And just to give you an idea of what it's like when you finally get on the right path and you change your investing criteria, what happened to me was I took assets that I owned for like 20 years that I operated miserably, that didn't pay me any cash flow, that I just kind of limped along. And then I turned my negative cash flow into positive cash flow to $1,000 in the positive. That's a $2,000 swing. That's instead of me paying $1,000 a month out of the income that I was earning by serving in the military to keep my real estate afloat, all of a sudden my real estate was paying me. That was a huge, huge change. The other thing I learned was an exit strategy. I had to get out of those assets. So I got out of those assets. I bought new assets in Texas. Since then, I've actually sold 2/3 of those assets, and I've taken that money and I've bought apartment buildings with it. And the one asset that I still have left, I'm actually in the process of getting ready to sell that to my resident. You heard me correctly. I'm getting ready to sell that to my resident. And I will exit single family and I will be full-blown multifamily. And I did all this in the last 5 years. As a matter of fact, I got myself retired in 2019. Yeah, and just fixing that single family piece, that was huge. That was huge. Yeah, trust me, it was huge. Now, when we went to break, I told you about a man who lives in his basement. And I asked you a question. I asked you the question as to whether or not you would rent to that individual. Now, some of you go, yeah, I'd rent to that guy. He sounds like a great guy. But hold on. Let's take a little time out. Let's talk through this process. How did you meet this guy? Well, this guy came to your property, liked your property, and he was willing to make an application. So he made the application. So you received the application, you received his fees, you ran the background check, clean as a whistle. No tickets, no nothing. Never. This guy's never had a run-in with the law. This guy is squeaky clean. Boy Scout, right? Okay. Then you run the credit report. Uh-oh. We got some lates on his credit report. That's not a good sign. Yeah, anytime you run a credit report and you start seeing that people are 30 days late, that tells you that they're having financial problems. That tells you that their expenditures are at or beyond their income, that they're potentially living off credit cards or buying stuff on credit cards because they need the stuff and then hoping they can pay for it in the future along with those 24, 25% interest rates, whatever those crazy credit card interest rates are at today. And then they start carrying a balance and they start getting into trouble. Okay, so you're looking at this guy's credit report and you're noticing 30-day late on that credit card, 30-day late, 30-day late, 30-day late. Okay, so the trend is this guy's got financial problems. Okay, so some of you are thinking, all right, let's get rid of this guy. Let's just go on to the next guy. Let's just cancel him. We'll just reject him because he has a bad payment history. But remember the backstory that I told you. Remember the backstory? The backstory was this. This guy worked in the service industry. He was materially affected by the pandemic. As a result of that, he had to leave his apartment. He couldn't afford to live there anymore, and he wound up moving into his mom's basement. He's living in his mom's basement. This guy works in the service industry. Okay, so he probably doesn't have the technical skills that are necessary for him to go out and be an essential worker, right? Like construction, medical. Okay, you know what I'm talking about, right? So maybe he looks to these essential industries. Okay, you could go to work for a grocery store. I mean, they would hire you, right? And they would probably put you to work and you would be an essential worker. But here's the problem. Those grocery stores, they already have employees. They do. Now, some of those employees may have left because they were concerned with the pandemic. And as a result, those grocery stores may have been able to hire some more people on. But here's the big global picture for you. Ready? Everybody that was materially affected that worked in the service industry was not able to find replacement employment in the essential industries because there's only a certain number of available spots. Period. End of story. This guy was struggling. He got a job here, it didn't last. He got a job there, it didn't last. He was getting his stimulus checks, he was getting his unemployment checks, but he was just barely keeping afloat. So the trend line that I noticed in his credit report is that he kept showing up 30 days late. And as I looked at his credit report, the only time periods where he was affected was from March of 2020 to the present. And actually, most of that stuff was about 2 years ago. So, would you reject this guy at this point? Okay. How do you know the character of this individual? So far, you've read a credit report, you've looked at a criminal history report, and maybe you've actually spoken to this person. What I would do is I would complete the process. I'm actually going to talk to this guy. I'm actually going to ask him why he had these credit problems because I want to know. Now, if he doesn't want to answer, okay, fine. I'm going to reject him because I don't have the complete picture. I think it's important for you to get a holistic approach to the people that you're going to get into business with. I really do. I think it's important for you to understand that we as human beings, we have things that affect us. We do. And sometimes those effects causes grief. Let me give you a personal example, shall I? So I mentioned earlier in the show that 2008 was just a nightmare for me. I did. I mean, it was a problem. That's when the real estate markets went out of control, right? Well, prior to 2008, they were out of control, kind of like they've been doing now, right? But the difference is because of what was going on in the lending environment, people were buying stuff and they were just trying to ride the price increases up so they could flip the property in the future, make the delta, in other words, the difference between what they bought it for and what they sold it for, and then they go buy another one. That was the trend that was going on from like 2005 up until 2008. And in 2008, it all came crashing down. Yeah, that glass house couldn't support itself, and it went, psh, imagine a glass house shattering. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so in 2008, the stock market, all of them were imploding. They actually I think they started kicking off a little bit earlier. And what Tina and I were living in was a beautiful house that we had bought for $700,000, and it was a fixer-upper. Yeah, so we had put $140,000 down, and the money came from the last house that we had sold. We'd lived there for 2 years, so we took all the money tax-free, and we bought this bigger, nicer house on acreage. And then we put another $200,000 into this house. Our all-in to this house was $900,000. The appraisal was about 1.1. Yeah. And then the housing markets imploded. And then Al got transferred, and Al had to do a geographical bachelor thing for 18 months. He had to go live 5 hours away from his family, get home when he could, all the while watching his entire financial world melting down. So we finally sold that house. We did. After 18 months, I was finally able to reassemble my family 5 hours away. I sold that house. Remember the pricing, right? I told you I bought it for $700. I put $200 into it. All in, I was at $900. The appraisal was 1.1, so I should have $200,000 worth of equity to play with, right? Wrong. I sold that house for $365,000. I did something called a short sale because I had to get out of that asset. It was destroying me, and it was destroying my family. And I had to get my family back together. And trust me, the guys that had the loan at the time, they were difficult to work with. Yeah, they were difficult to work with. They would go in and they would look at all my financial accounts that, I provided them this information when I assigned everything, when I signed up for the loan, right? So they had all this information. They're like, well, you got money over here. Why don't you give us that money? And then we'll do the short sale. And I'm like, no, you don't get that money. Well, you collateralized the loan. I said, no, I didn't. I collateralized it with the property, not with the account. You guys back off. Either do this or we're going legal. Well, they finally decided to do it. And what happened to me was I got a credit ding on my credit report. So for 2 years, Tina and I had to go rent. We couldn't buy a house. We wanted to go buy another house. We couldn't buy another house. We were affected by that short sale. It sat on our credit report for 2 years until I was able to get past that and buy a house. Yeah, I know. Okay, I got to tell you where this whole concept came from, this man in the basement thing. When my son was young, we used to joke with him that one day we were going to buy a big house with a basement. And that John would just live there forever. Yeah, that was the joke. And his sister used to Jesselyn, she used to just poke him in the chest all the time. Like, yeah, you're just that kind of guy. Okay, it was family fun. But it got me thinking about how different people get affected by the situations in the life. Now, there's that third man living in the basement. And this guy's living there for a completely different reason. Completely different reason. Okay, this guy might have his stuff together. We're not 100% sure, but he's living in his mom's basement. So what do we do with this guy? Why is he living in the basement? Well, here's why. He's a caregiver for his mother. He made an informed decision to put his life on hold to take care of the most important person in his life, his mother. He lives in that basement because he chooses to do that. He works, he makes an income, and he uses that income to help offset the costs that his mother experiences because she's got Social Security, right? Okay, what else she got? Medicaid. What else she got? She got the house, and that's it. And he's living in her basement. Now, some of you would think, well, it sounds like that guy's like taking advantage of the situation, like he's kind of like getting over, right? And I'm thinking, no, I don't think so. I think it's a mutually agreeable situation. Now, some people might think, that's just weird. Why would a 30-something-year-old, well, we don't know how old he is. We'll just call him a 30-something-year-old, right? So why would a 30-something-year-old do this? Well, I think it's because of a little thing called love. I think this man has such a love for his mother that he is willing to do whatever he needs to do to take care of somebody that is absolutely important in his life. So what he chooses to do now is to put his life basically on hold so that he can live in his mother's basement, so that he can provide the additional care that she needs, so that she can have a fulfilling life in her golden years. And you know what I think about that guy? That man living in the basement? I think that guy needs to be a Lifestyles Unlimited member. I do. I think he needs to be a Lifestyles Unlimited member. Because let's pull the lens back a little bit. This guy's got values. He's got ethics. He cares. He's got a heart. He cares for his mom. He's willing to do something that most people in today's society would not do. I want to get that guy into Lifestyles Unlimited. I do. And here's the other thing that I know. He's working, so he's making an income. But he's not spending the entire income on the households he's living in because he has an agreement with his mother. He's augmenting her expenses, and he's doing it rightfully so because he's living in that property and he's consuming that property along with his mother. But here's the other thing. He doesn't spend all of his money. He doesn't. Some of this money gets set aside. This guy may be in the stock market or he may not be in the stock market. I don't really care what he's doing for retirement. But I will tell you this. If this 30-something-year-old is listening to this show and he's living in mom's basement for all the right reasons, he's earning a stable income, he's making money, he's able to carve some of this money aside, whether he puts it into a retirement account or not, he's saving money. This is important because this individual is creating a nest egg for investment. As a matter of fact, depending on what he's doing for savings, we might be able to get him started in a single-family property. We might be able to get him into a single-family property where maybe it only takes him, $25,000 cash out of pocket to do the entire deal. Yet he's buying an asset for $115,000. Yet the ARV, the after repair value of that asset, is worth $189,000 all fixed up. Now, this guy, he has no idea how to do any of this stuff. He has no idea. But we have a solution. We just need 16 hours of his time. And there's various ways he can go through the 16-hour course. He can do it in a weekend. He can do it live, or he can do it on the internet. Or we offer what we call the 4-part. We break the whole thing up into 4 segments. We run it across 2 weeks in the evenings, midweek, because there are people out there that can't give up their weekends. Maybe this guy is one of those guys. Maybe his weekend has to be dedicated to his mother's care. But here's the thing. Investing in real estate isn't going to suck up a lot of his time. It's not going to take a lot of his time because we're going to teach him how to do it correctly. We're going to teach him how to do it effectively. We're going to teach him how to identify assets that allow him to take that $25,000 and double it in a certain period of time. As a matter of fact, we'll also teach him how he can develop an income stream, and he can use that income stream to offset his expenses in life or even his mom's expenses. And as a result of that, we can get him one asset, and then we can get him a second asset, and then we get him a third asset. And before you know it, he's completely real estate retired. That means that job he's been going to, he doesn't have to do it anymore. He can get himself fully real estate retired, and then all of his time is 100% his. So that limited time that he has for his mother, well, it just expanded exponentially. He can now provide care for his mother full-time if he desires to do that. See, that's what I'm talking to you guys about. That is the power of what we do at Lifestyles Unlimited. And if you want to get started, go to the website, go to lifestylesunlimited.com, get signed up for a workshop, and let's get you out of that basement.
The information and opinions you hear on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show are those of the host, guests, and callers. The Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.